Well, since last videos we've made, got a few things done. Weather's been kind of a hindrance in getting things done, to say the least. I had got the pickup tore down, front clip off, and the engine and transmission out. My plans were to get it out here and pressure wash it. Well, it has snowed and it's been really cold. Been in the high 20s and low teens or 10. And we're planning on a few more colder days before next weekend. So I did get some pressure washing done. I had that pickup box on the trailer. Well, I backed it into the shop here and unloaded the box and loaded up the engine and two transmissions on the back of the trailer and pulled it out here in front of the shop and pressure washed them. And my plans were to get the pickup out here too, pressure wash the engine compartment area, frame rails in front of the cab firewall. But I didn't think I could get it pushed back in, pushing it in the snow, so I left that off. But we'll get in the shop here and I'll show you where I'm at, and I'll catch you up on what my next plans are. So I did manage to get the pickup stripped down, like I said, front clip off, the doors off as well, and the engine and transmission out. I want to get this all pressure washed and cleaned up, because I do want to paint all this up nice while I have it tore down this far. Get some detailing in there. And then we had the transmission out. This is the transmission that came out of it. I am debating on whether to rebuild it and put it back in. It's Turbo 400. And then I have this transmission here that I was figuring on putting in it. Finally got a sunny day. Really surprised on how clean this was inside. It was a good runner, so I have just been planning on putting new gaskets and seals in it, double check the timing chain, make sure it's okay, and put it all back together, put it in there. Anyhow, so we'll just tear into it and check it all out. See if there's anything weird going on in there. I don't like the idea of having to pry so much on here. Bend all this. Gently, slow and steady. I'd like to know if that's normal practice in different parts of the country. Not using gaskets, just silicone the heck out of everything. Well, I've never had that much trouble panning off. No gaskets at all. front gasket, no rear gasket or pan gasket at all. Really clean in there though. I think it was a pretty fairly fresh overhaul. That's what the top end looked like too. So for those of you that have never used a harmonic balancer puller to pull a harmonic balancer off of a motor, this is the way to do it. You want to use a balancer puller to pull a balancer off, because it ties in 3 points on this balancer to pull it off of the front shaft of the crank. If you're tempted to and do not have one of these pullers, to use a jaw puller that clamps over both sides of this balancer, it would hook it over here and just got a straight bar that goes across to pull that off. Don't do it. You will ruin the balancer. This balancer is actually in 2 pieces. There's an inner piece and an outer piece with a rubber dampener cushion in here that will separate. If you go to pull this off with a jaw puller, you will pull it right off of the center. It'll just come right off, and it will ruin this because you'll never get it back together. And then you still have to pull the center part off of the front of the crank. So get yourself one of these, borrow one of these, buy one, rent one, don't steal one to do this right. I learned this as a teenager. The first motor I pulled apart did not have a balancer puller, and I used a jaw puller, and I've talked to other people that have done the same thing, and it'll come right off, and you'll have this steel ring, the center part of the balancer still on there, and you still have to do the work. And then you got to buy an extra balancer. So take advice from people that learn the hard way. Silicone on, I can see it all over there. Oh, came off plug either. Oh, somebody spent money and did a double roller timing chain. That's nice. I was going to pull the heads, check out that, but I don't know if there's a reason to do that anymore. No, the only reason I pulled the head off was to measure the bore. But there we are. You can come in here with the tape and measure across there 4 inches. And if you go over to the book, I wasn't sure whether it was a 305. A 305 would be 3 1/4 inches, and a 350 would be 4 inches. So this is the number I was going with to determine what engine this is. You can look at casting numbers, which will give you an idea what block it is. So you can look these numbers up here, and generally that'll tell you. But I'll show you what I was looking at. I hate oil leaks. So I got the motor out. One of the things I wanted to do, and the reason for pulling it, was just go ahead and change the pan gaskets, the front and rear seal, and just kind of check it out. I like to know what's going on, and down the road I plan on selling this thing, so it'd be nice to have some documentation on how good a shape this motor's in. I'm expecting it to look real good, just from what I've seen. You know, new timing chain, the pan hasn't been off probably since the day it was put on. I mean, it's just really clean, right? But I could actually see down on the inside of the skirts, where the skirt's right here on the cylinder walls, that still had cross hatching from being honed. There you can see the honing marks. Good shape. You gotta see this. see it. Just barely got some shine on there right now. I like to see that. Just roll right out of there, just like that. So if you can see this, got a fat side and a thin side. Well, in the way the seal is cupped here, this will go to the inside of the engine, that seal edge here. If there's any pressure that builds up, it's going to create more seal on that. So that needs to be installed to the front. And just roll it in there. Roll it in there most of the way, not all the way flush. See how I have that sticking up just a little bit? If you do that, it's to your advantage. That way you don't have too much going on at that flat surface. And then we'll clock that one just a little bit. And we'll put just a dab of sealant on the end of the main cap. And just gently and carefully and slowly reinsert that back in there. Here we go. Just seat this good, then we'll torque it. Then in the book under torque specs, we got an 8-cylinder. And 350, which all the small blocks are the same. The main bolts are 70 pounds. So we'll torque that to 70 and move on. Got crazy. 70. £70. Oh, you guys that use torque wrenches, these click style torque wrenches, when you set your setting and you're all done, back it off, back the tension off the spring, make them last longer. Something else to think about, got this little plastic snap ring right here that holds the pump drive on the pump. The gasket set comes with one of these. When you're into it this far, just replace it. You'd hate for that thing to break, and next time you pull the distributor out, the rod pops up and falls in the pan. Then you got a big headache. So we're gonna change that. It's a little plastic job like that. Snap this guy back in here. Ta-da! Oh, and while I have this out, got the pickup on these things. I don't know if you noticed when I pulled the pan off, this thing got pulled all out of whack. You don't really know what it's gonna do while it's in the pan. If you bump it while you're putting your pan on and it's all down, up, bent up where it can't suck as much oil off the bottom, it could be a big problem. Now I'll blow this out and get all the junk out of there. Well, I decided not to pull the heads off. As good as everything looked, there was no real reason to tear into it other than just to look at it. And I really don't want to do the extra work. What I needed to do and what I wanted to find out, I found out. I changed the rear seals, I checked the timing chain and looked at the bore size, find out what size motor it is, and just looked at the overall condition of the motor. And I'm really satisfied with what we got here. It's a great looking motor. It ran good to start with, and it looks good on the inside. So I'm not gonna go any further. I'm just gonna continue to clean it up, put it back together, and get it ready to install when that time comes. Okay, so I got it all cleaned up, painted up, ready to start installing the tin work, intake, whatever, all the other accessories on it. I want to point out, I'm not painting this to try to fool anybody that it's a rebuilt motor. This video kind of shows what I looked at, and that it's not, you could say it's a recently rebuilt. A lot of people say that and they don't know, or they're lying to you. I don't know how long ago it was rebuilt, but I do know that it was clean. Got a good timing chain. I got to look at the cam lobes on a few of the lobes, and they looked good. I could still see the hatch marks, the honing marks on the cylinder walls from the bottom side. With the piston all the way up, you could see about half of that wall. It looked good. So all I'm really doing is just dressing it up, making it look nice, because I am going to paint this pickup up and try to make it look really cool, or really nice anyways. I don't know how cool, but make it look really nice. And I don't want the engine bay looking disgusting. So with that being said, that's the reason I'm doing this. It's a factory intake manifold, but it's aluminum intake manifold I cleaned up so it'll look sharp. Excuse me. Got some chrome valve covers and air cleaner and little things like that, just to pretty it up. And so anyhow, I'm gonna get busy and putting it together. Put some sealant here on the cover. Hold the gasket in place mainly. I'm just putting a little thin bead on here. The fella that rebuilt this motor before covered everything in some sort of silicone. I'd never really seen that done like that. I want to say bad things about it, but really I can't, because couldn't see where anything really had leaked. The worst part was getting the things apart. It was pretty much glued together. Put this gasket on here. We'll do the intake. I'm just going to put a couple of dabs sealant here just to hold this gasket in place. And these are Velcro, and it actually says this side up, so it's pretty handy. Guys like me get confused pretty easy with things like that. So I threw those gaskets away that go on these China walls, because they will leak regardless of what you do. So I'm going to put a bead of this here. I'm going to start at the gasket, and I'm going to probably put, not overdo it, and do maybe a 1/4 inch thick. All the way across and onto this other gasket. Same back here. Then I'll gently set this on here. You want to see that sealant in here actually bulged out a little bit, that you know you made good contact. And when you torque it, it'll actually come down a little more. Well, I went ahead and ordered some valve covers from Speedway. Just all chrome. Just enough fanciness. Don't overdo it on the sealant. I'm just putting a thin layer to hold the gasket in place. There. And I also picked up tie-down plates so it doesn't distort that valve cover like some of these guys on here. Probably didn't need tall covers. Ta-da! It's all ready to go, other than a few other things, a few accessories. Distributor, definitely won't put that in until we get it in the pickup. Take a chance, it's either too tight or take a chance of breaking something, trying to squeeze it in that hole. So the alternator, carburetor, of course, I'm gonna use a plate to lift this motor on the top, so the carburetor definitely would be in the way. And then all the rest of the accessories, stuff we'll put on after we get it in. Be a lot easier to deal with. And especially when I won't have the front clip on it, so it'll be really easy to stand right there and work on it. We'll probably put headers on it. I still need to get some grommets for these holes here. And other than that, just little things, and she's ready to go.